Ladies and gentlemen and football fans from all over the world, you are joining the Fantasy Football Buzz podcast tonight. We've got Cyclop in 2020 with us. And I was saying in the past, welcome to Tuesday Night Football. And we kind of chuckled about it, but it actually is Tuesday Night Football.
It's amazing.
We're doing the podcast while the game is on. We'll be giving updates of the game as well throughout the podcast tonight. But waiver wire is on everybody's mind, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But first, 2020 Cyclop, how you guys doing tonight?
It's Tuesday night. We got football. I mean, it's amazing.
We just need
more nights,
right?
More nights this week,
and then Thursday. Yeah. Well, there is no Thursday night football this week, but I'm feeling good. I mean, football is still going on. We're 5 weeks into the season. I mean, there's more things happening and more injuries and more things going on than we can count. Yeah. So for us, there's a lot to talk about.
That's right.
A lot of info to be had.
And from what I understand, we do have a special guest even joining us tonight, but we'll get to that later. First, in doing the updates, rather than just reading the updates, I'll kind of give a headline and let's hear some comments on it. First of all, Jimmy Garoppolo, right? We know that he went out of the game against the Dolphins the other day, but everybody's saying, no, he came in on Monday and he was fine. So we don't know, for anybody that is thinking about starting Garoppolo, just be careful. We don't know what's going to happen, if he'll be on a short string again like he was on Sunday. So I would still continue to bench him if that opportunity arises. Chris Hogan, 7-Eleven, right? For anybody that was watching Hard Knocks when the Dolphins were on, they got to know and love Chris Hogan. Since then, he's played for every other AFC East team. He has now been put on injured reserve. So I don't know if anybody had him on their roster, but injured reserve. What about Le'Veon Bell, guys? He reportedly has been put on the trading block by the Jets. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's going to be interest? And if so, who do you think that might be?
Well, his contract definitely limits his interest a little bit. But I mean, there was an article I read earlier that they were talking about him coming to the Dolphins. I don't know. There's certainly enough injuries out there that certainly teams will look at him. Mm-hmm. You know, teams that need New England, Minnesota.
You know, the teams, like there are people that say, you know, he's a cancer. He's not good for the locker room. I mean, we've already learned that in New York when things went wrong, he just abandoned them. But New England doesn't care about players like that, right?
Right. No,
so they'll take anybody as long as it can help them win a championship. I can see them grabbing Le'Veon Bell based on the fact that Sonny Michel had to be put on IR.
So before we go further, we have a guest tonight. He's going to come on. His name is Adam, and his dad has been on the show several times over the years. And he actually happens to be a Jets fan. We still can't figure out why, but he is. We'll go ahead and bring Adam in. And Adam also, just so you know, and I know this is Adam. He has actually taken a fantasy football class in school.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yes. Who knew they had that? But at Very his cool. School, which, you know, it's special needs school, but we won't talk about that right now. But
well, if they're taking Jets fans, it's got to be
my condolences on the Jets, exactly. Adam, but welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Are we going to move forward with updates?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Well, I wanted to talk about Dalvin Cook, right? Because now if we're talking about fantasy-worthy news, the word was today that that Mike Zimmer said that everything looked clean, his MRI went well, but they're still not expected to play him on week 6. So we'll get into that when we talk about our waiver wire. But if you have Dalvin Cook, make sure you have somebody else for this coming week. But after that, he should.
Derrick Henry just threw.
I'm pretty sure
who it was, a defender 5 yards back. I don't know if you're watching that.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he has a bye week after he plays the Jets, and the Jets are basically a bye week.
Right.
But I mean, that gives him time if they don't decide to play him because they're literally playing the Jets. But if they don't play him, then he'll have the extra week of rest for the bye week. So that would be definitely good for him.
And I think if they weren't playing,
we have a call coming in. Can you guys 1 second?
They probably would have. They probably would be playing.
Yeah, but it's the Jets.
Hey, Kenneth, is that you?
Yeah, I think.
Hey, Kenneth, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Looks like I'm going to end up winning my week again.
Wow.
Going 4 out of 5.
And we'll take credit for that.
Yeah.
Was not
I can't hear.
Cook.
Yeah, I made the mistake of dropping Brandon Cooks. So you're at least you still have him. But yeah, no, Cooks had a great week. No doubt about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about Brandon Cooks a little later with wide receivers.
And EJ Moore instead.
No, that was good. I guess things worked out for you, so not a problem.
Yeah, it looks like as far as the scoring right now, it's 152.5 for me. My opponent is 131.16.
All right. Well, good job.
Does he have anybody going tonight?
Do what now?
Does he have anybody going tonight in the game?
No, I'm done.
Night. Well, then you got the win. Good job.
Do you have any questions for us on waiver wire pickups or anything dealing with fantasy football?
Well, my Seahawks team D is going to be on a bye, I believe, next week. Is there any team Ds that I should be looking at to replace it?
Anybody who plays the Jets.
I was just going to say the Vikings, which have a terrible defense, are now a good streaming option because they're playing the hapless Jets.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's hard for us to sit here and tell you which defenses to take because we really don't know who's available in your league. Right. But why don't you make sure you listen to us Sunday morning? We're going to do a start 'em sit 'em Sunday morning, and we'll let you know at that point who we think are the top defenses to start for this coming week. All right?
All right, I appreciate it.
You got it, Ken. Thanks for calling.
Honestly, I'm going to treat that call like a testimonial. Ken has been great. He listens to the show. He calls in. He's winning his games because he's getting sound advice.
That's right.
The Fantasy Buzz podcast.
And you guys,
so that was a live testimonial. Thank you.
And you all can call in too, just 772-800-BUZZ. Give us a call, or you can always comment in Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and we will get to your comments live on the air. So, Brad, do you want to jump right into waivers? What would you like to do?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, it's a big week for waivers. Obviously, there were some big injuries this week, and we'll talk about waivers as we're talking about the injuries. So yeah, I say let's do it. And I think as we go down the list, Keith, 2020, we got quarterbacks. Yep.
Absolutely. So, excuse me. Obviously, we're talking about people that are on the waiver wire. All the studs are going to be gone. You got people that are on bye. So for me, one of my hot pickups is we've been talking about him a bit for the year, and this is going to be a homer pick, but it's Mr. Fitzmagic. Ryan Fitzpatrick is really doing, other than that dud week 1 against a pretty stingy New England Patriots defense, Fitzpatrick's been doing fairly well. And not only from a fantasy standpoint, his quarterback rating, his completion percentage, his air yards, everything is looking really good. Last week, he went for 350, 3 touches, and just under 30 points. The week before, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 points. And then to the 2 weeks before that, 25 and 26 points. So his worst week of the last 4 has been 23 points. So he's got a we talk about the tasty matchups. Excuse me. Actually, the Dolphins play the Jets this week.
Right.
Correct.
So, yeah.
The schedule revamp.
Yeah.
Revamped. Right.
That, yeah.
So the Dolphins, right. So the Dolphins are playing the Jets.
Mm-hmm, they switched it.
Right. So that's a fantastic matchup. The only thing to worry about is we get so far ahead that they might be running the ball. But Fitzpatrick's a beautiful pickup right there. And this is
actually 4th in the league in QB rating behind Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
Who would have thought?
and that's what's so interesting, because he's always going to give you numbers. He's kind of like that Jameis Winston, going to give you great fantasy numbers, yards and touchdowns, but he's going to make those bonehead interceptions that are going to cost you a couple points. But you know something? He has it. But if you're going to get 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions from a fantasy standpoint, you don't really care either.
Now,
so the next guy.
So I'm sorry, Keith, but I just wanted Adam to give Adam the good news that Sam Darnold is actually 28th, meaning that Nick Foles, Joe Burrow, Jeff Driscoll, and Dwayne Haskins are worse than him. So there's promise and optimism in New York. Go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry.
That's right. We're going to coin a new phrase tonight. Losing for Lawrence.
There you go.
There you go. So the next guy I'm going to talk about, this is a guy that I was high on 3 weeks ago. So hopefully you guys did the right thing, got him out there, put him on your bench. Actually, Cyclops and I share a league together. We started him this week with Aaron Rodgers on bye, and that's Justin Herbert. This kid, I got to tell you, rookie quarterback, he has been setting it on fire. The last 3 weeks, he's another one. Well, actually, of the last 4 weeks, 3 of them, he's putting up over 23 points a game. He's getting the yardage, averaging about 300 yards a game. He's getting the touchdowns. This last week, if you watched last night's game, he went for 254 and 4 touchdowns, almost led an overtime win. He's showing good stuff. Unfortunately, he is on bye. But for those of you who are suffering from Prescott, that are suffering with Matt Ryan, or not getting good quarterback play, pick him up. Deal with the bye week because this guy is lighting it up.
Can I just say that I think you pronounce the H. It is not silent as in like pepper is an herb. It is actually Herbert. And the reason I'm bringing that up because you did say Herbert, but we've had
Herbert.
It sounded like you said Herbert because we've had that discussion.
Go to the replay.
Yeah, we're going to have to go back to the replay. But you do pronounce the H kind of like they do in England.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
So I have a question, right? As we're on quarterbacks and Herbert, you had Herbert and you had
Fitzpatrick.
No. I understand that.
Are
but
you
I'm talking about
my stardom list?
These are
on that. I had Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, and Teddy Bridgewater.
No, what I'm saying is we have Tua in Miami.
Right.
You have Herbert and you have Burrow
right.
starting on their teams and playing well. Now the teams aren't necessarily winning.
Yeah, they're 0-8. So
and I'm pretty sure
Herbert should have won last night. Herbert should have won last night. Chargers won a game.
Have all been by like one score. So I mean they're getting
every
game.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference.
Every game they've lost has been by less than 7 points.
What hasn't been Herbert's fault?
But you watch him play, and he's got a certain something, and he's making it happen. Do you see long term that? I mean, obviously we haven't seen Tua play, but would you have wanted him?
I'll tell you something. It's interesting. Here's the difference. Burrow and Herbert, not Herbert, don't have a quarterback in front of them that is currently, like you said, Commish, ranked number 4 with QBR. And completion percent. I think completion percentage, but I know his QBR. So Fitzpatrick is playing phenomenal, some of his best football. When he falls off a cliff, which we know he will, when Fitzmagic becomes Fitzpatrick, that would be possibly a good opportunity to look at it. And I'll tell you what else was interesting. If Houston would have lost this game and they would be continuing to lose, then you almost want to look at it because here's the idea. If Houston kept losing, and the Dolphins have that pick, they actually have a shot at Trevor Lawrence. You almost want to put Tua in, test his mettle, see if he is durable, because if he isn't, God forbid, and I think he is, then you have a shot at Trevor Lawrence. And that all depends upon how Houston is doing. And I think they might possibly judge that. But right now, Fitzpatrick is Fitzmagic, and he's playing phenomenal. So why put him in?
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
All right. Moving on with quarterback waiver wire pickups. Interesting. This is a quarterback that I picked up for a 1-week start, and he killed me. Kirk Cousins. He had that awful week where he actually had negative points. I literally wanted to kick him in the balls. But over the last few weeks, he's actually been performing halfway decent. Hold on a second. That is
talk about a turnaround.
Yeah,
for a quarterback and a team. I mean, it was amazing after the first 2 weeks, and then where they are now.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been lighting it up. He's been efficient. But what I like this week coming in, he's at home against Atlanta. I don't know what's going on with Atlanta, but their defense is terrible. You want to think that they're going to score because you want them to have to air it out. But it should be a good game for Cousins to go for some yardage and certainly some touchdowns. And then my last guy, this is very interesting, is Andy Dalton. No,
I agree.
Dalton's one of those guys in Cincinnati. He could light it up some games, and then, he would be a total bust others. But here's the deal. That defense is so bad. They're loaded with weapons. Dalton shows he can be very potent when he has good weapons around him. And him and AJ Green had an incredible chemistry. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He's got Amari Cooper. He's got Dalton Schultz. I think they're going to have to throw the ball because they're going to keep coming out and ending up behind 21 points. It's going to be good garbage yards. If none of these other guys are available, Dalton was a guy at the starter in the league for a long time, and he's going to have to sling the rock like crazy. So that's another good possible waiver wire pickup for you. And those are my quarterback waiver wire pickups for the week.
All right, so I guess we'll jump into running back real quick, and we did talk about Dalvin Cook, and if you picked Dalvin Cook in the draft, you were probably happy watching the game the other night because he was actually off to a really good start, and then the inevitable happened, and he started grabbing his groin, and not for the good reasons, and then Madison came in, and all Madison did was rush for 20 yards, was rush the ball 20 times for 112 yards, and added another 24 yards receiving. And like I said, Mike Zimmer said that the MRI was clean. We were thinking that we might see him back in week 6, but as it is right now, the team probably is not going to rush him back. So if Madison is available, if you're going to grab him, just know that you're going to stream him for about 2 weeks, but then possibly hold on to him in the event this happens again, or Cook is not necessarily 100%.
I had Madison. I drafted him in a few of my leagues. I had to drop him. I didn't have to. I dropped him in one league to pick somebody else up because I needed someone. In the other league, I still have him, so I'm very excited for this week going against Atlanta. So that's been a nice addition, and I think once I dropped him, somebody else picked him up in my other league, so I won't have a chance at him there.
All right, so just keep in mind, guys, there's not a lot of running backs usually available at this point in the league. Or this point in most fantasy football leagues. But if we're really going to start looking and searching, I'm going to give you guys another reminder. I did this last week, but Philip Lindsay's returning from his toe injury. So whether you have Gordon or not, just know that the Lindsay from last year is the same Lindsay this year as long as he stays healthy, and he has top 15 potential. So if you have the ability to get Philip Lindsay and drop your backup kicker or tight end, go ahead and do it. We've talked about New England running backs. Not a big fan of New England running backs, but Damian Harris seems to be the real deal there. But we don't know week in, week out whether or not it's going to be Damian Harris rushing the ball. So especially this week, you don't have a great matchup, but he could be a low-end running back too moving forward. Justin Jackson, we saw him last night, didn't have a great game, but if he, last year he averaged 5.1 yards per carry. He's not the same guy so far this year, but if Justin Jackson is available, it's not a bad pickup if you have the ability to maybe put somebody on IR and grab Jackson. We talked last week about D'Ernest Johnson for Cleveland. He didn't have a great game. If he's available, possibly pick him up. Other guys, without getting into detail, Cam Akers, Chase Edmonds, Zach Moss. If those guys are available, think about picking them up. But really, the waiver wire has kind of been, clean.
And don't forget JD McKissick either. I'm pretty sure he's I looked it up. I think he's 6% rostered across all leagues. And you either have Alex Smith or Kyle Allen coming back in. He might not have the best PPR value, but he's definitely going to get you the points you need.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you're talking to a Gibson.
You need to stream some, right?
But
you need to stream, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into wide receivers.
All right, so we'll jump into wide receivers. Before we get there, Adam, just give us a quick synopsis of how your fantasy season is going so far. Maybe what your team looks like and how you're doing.
Yeah,
very quick.
So far, I'm in 2 leagues right now. I'm 4-1 in one of them, 3-2 in the other. The reason I'm 3-2 in that one, I'm kind of frustrated with that. Every single week I've played somebody, it's been their season high so far. So I've played against someone who scored 180. I've played against someone who scored 160, and every single week on those, I've been second highest just to them. So
we call that the Debbie rule.
Yeah, literally, I've been experiencing that every single week. So I have the most total points in the league. So I'm proud of that. I'm happy with that because I know that's going to get it done when I actually need it to. But so far, I'm only doing okay in that league just because I've played everybody when they're doing so well.
Okay, that happens, and we've go back a long history in ours, and 1 year that seems to be, there's always that one person that has that luck against them as they play the high points for 3 out of the 4 first weeks, and you end up with a bad record but a lot of points.
Exactly.
I'll tell you that happens too.
What I never understand is why do most leagues, most of your popular platforms, whether it's NFL, Yahoo, ESPN, CBS Sports, why do they keep track of points against if there's really nothing it's not very popular to do anything about that? You're not necessarily helping somebody. You're not.
I think it's just to complain, to be honest.
That makes
I think it's just to be able to say, "Well, I've gone against this many points."
It makes you feel better to look.
Exactly.
And compare that.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing that works really well in leagues to safeguard against a good team that's put up a lot of points and just had bad matchups throughout the year. And however many playoff spots you have, if you have 4, 5, or 6,
we have 4. Yeah,
you have 4. You reserve the last playoff spot for the highest scoring team that wouldn't have made the playoffs. Right. And that it's a safeguard that if you just had that bad luck all year, that as long and because you've done well and you put up a lot of points, you'll still make the playoffs. I love that rule.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
I'm not the Commish in any of my leagues, but I'll definitely introduce it.
Yeah, and there's the other thing that I know, I've brought up for years in our league, but I know people do is a double schedule. So you end up, you don't know. So you might be 1-1 instead of 0-1 or 2-0 if you're good. So anyway, so we'll jump into receivers for this week. We seem to have a plethora of them this week. So the number one receiver out there to pick up on your waivers is Claypool, right? In Pittsburgh. He has kind of jumped onto the surface here. Deontay Johnson was nicked up in their game. Juju seems to have disappeared for the most part. And Roethlisberger clearly likes this guy. He had 11 targets this past week, 7 for 110, 3 receiving touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So they are using him in a lot of different ways, a lot of different sets. And, once if Roethlisberger likes you, he feeds you the ball. We've seen it over and over for years. So, you definitely use some fab money on him if you have it, and get him on your roster if you can. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen went out. All of a sudden, it's the Mike Williams show. I mean, the guy made some beastly catches last night.
That one to get the first down where he jumped over like 3 defenders was insane.
Marshawn Lattimore,
on Lattimore, it was amazing. And they really, they were set up to win that game. And of course, they missed the field goal closing seconds. It hit the goalpost. It was crazy. But he gets 109, 2 touchdowns. We'll see what they say about Keenan Allen. But again, Mike Williams, he's like this guy. He's on and off rosters, right? You pick him up, try to stream him for a week, and then you drop him. But if you can get him on, it looks like he has a really good connection with Herbert, and get him on your roster. Fulgham in Philadelphia. All right. Zach Ertz has disappeared in that offense. So of course, you got Goddard is hurt. Ertz is gone. Jackson's hurt. Jeffrey's hurt. So a couple of those guys might be coming back soon, potentially this week. But he goes for 10 for 152 and a touchdown. They were feeding him. It looked like every single pass went to him last night for a few drives. So again, he's a big body out there. He looked good. He was making some acrobatic catches. He was getting to the ball. So I was watching that game. So I would roster him if you can, even if you don't necessarily going to start him, but definitely roster him if you have the space. And my last guy, my fourth one, would be Tim Patrick in Denver. He goes for 6 for 113. Of course, you have Sutton's out for the year. You have, going to blank on his name, is hurt. Hamlin. So They go against New England. New England's been susceptible a bit to wide receivers. Of course, Drew Lock might be coming back. So, Tim Patrick seems to be a guy that you want to get on your roster. Fant's been hurt as well.
Fant's hurt there too, right?
Yeah. So those are my top 4. There's a few more. You have Jeffrey, who's coming back from injury, so that could be an interesting add if he's out there. You have Christian Kirk, who's been getting more attention. Of course, Hopkins is going to be the main guy there, but Kirk has been getting the ball. So, and he's also has a very favorable upcoming schedule, Arizona. So keep an eye on that.
One of the people we recommended that we should pick up last week is still available on a lot of wires, which is crazy. It's T. Higgins. Yeah. And the amount of catches, the amount of targets that this guy is getting is crazy. I think we're seeing the end of A.J. Green. I really do. And
I think you've seen it.
There was a video going around after the interception where he didn't even try to tackle the guy. So who knows what's going to happen with A.J. Green. But right now, T. Higgins seems to be one of the favorite targets there.
He's gonna end up on the Jets,
where all great players come to die.
All right, so that's what I got for wide receivers as far as waiver pickups. So I think tight ends goes back to 2020, right?
That is correct. Let's see where we are on tight ends. Okay. So again, there's not a lot out there really to work with. I've looked at all the leagues that I'm in, but just in maybe in some of the 10-man leagues that you might be, if a guy like Jimmy Graham is still available, I know he was a hot waiver pickup after he went for 6 for 60 for 2 touchdowns against Atlanta, and then against Indy, he didn't have the best week, going 4 for 33, and then he came back last week in Tampa, 3 grabs, 33 yards, but he did get that touchdown. What I like is he's got some pretty tasty matchups coming up. He's at Carolina, which has a Swiss cheese defense, so that's a really, really nice matchup, and they can score. So I like that. He's at the Rams, who have a pretty good defense, but I like his matchups coming up. And if he's out there, I would say grab him. If this guy's still out there, then there's something wrong with your league. But just in case there is, obviously, that would be Robert Tonyan, who absolutely positively exploded for 3 touchdowns, 6 grabs, and just under 100 yards last week. But he's on a 3-game touchdown streak. He's got some nice matchups other than the bye coming up at Tampa and Houston, and then Minnesota. Houston and Minnesota are very, very poor. Have very poor secondaries, and you can throw all over them. So if Tanyan's available, that's something to look up as well. And then just simply based on injury, you might want to take a peek at Rob Gronkowski. I don't particularly love him. His numbers aren't great, but with O.J. Howard going down, you've got, of course, the connection between Tom Brady and him, and Brady loves the tight end. And then when we're talking about drops and people to look at, to me, this is just a question mark, and it's Mike Gesicki. I was so big on him. He had such incredible chemistry with Fitzpatrick towards the last third of the season last year, and he started out the season so good. In the second game, he went 8 for 130 and a touchdown, and he had a couple touchdown streak. But over the last 3 games, he's literally almost disappeared from the offense. Now, this last week, he did go 5 for 91. So the 5 grabs, that gives me some hope. The 91 yards is very misleading. That was mostly on one 75-yard play. So if not for that play, he would have been 4 for about 15, 20 yards. So, right. And that would have been 3 weeks in a row with 15 yards and a total of 6 catches. So it's kind of bizarre because him and Fitzpatrick have this chemistry. Now, again, he does have some nice matchups coming up. He's got the Jets, then he's on bye. But this guy's a question mark. If you have better options, I would consider starting them until.
Did you just say the bye is a good matchup?
Yes, it is. No,
who is available in a lot of leagues right now, who's coming alive, that people are forgetting about, is Austin Hooper. He was great in Atlanta. Then he went to Cleveland. People were dropping him because he wasn't doing well. Last week he had 10 targets. The week before he had 7 targets. This is somebody who's available to keep an eye on.
He's been available, though? I thought he's pretty scooped up everywhere.
No, he's available in 30% of the leagues.
Oh yeah, that's some availability.
And before we move on, it is halftime. I just want to let everybody know that the Bills are losing to the Titans 10-21. Some of the relevant fantasy numbers right now: Ryan Tannehill has 17 points. AJ Brown at 11.5. Welcome back, AJ. Derrick Henry only 8.4. He had the one touchdown, but he's only rushed for 24 yards. Josh Allen having a disappointing day. He only has 7.5 points, 124 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Stephon Diggs, very, very disappointing right now with, not too disappointing. I'm sorry, 4 for 54. Actually, 8 for 108 would be good for a whole game. Jonnu Smith, only 2.9 points, 3 catches for 29 yards.
Yeah, so Tannehill just ran a touchdown in just before half. So that was nice. They look good. Tennessee looks good right now against Buffalo, and we're happy with that. Real quick, so Adam, was there anybody in those waivers that you were thinking, oh, they missed this guy or that guy?
One person, I just thought you guys would have said him because he's a home favorite. Preston Williams from the Dolphins. I know he had one kind of big play, and he hasn't had many targets other than before this game, but he went 4 for 5. He had about 100 yards, and he had a touchdown. So I don't think it's something to pick him up immediately. You have to start him, whatever, go crazy for him. But I do think it's a nice idea of him. I mean, I think he's only rostered in about 20% of the leagues or so. So if you do need a stream or something, he does play the Jets. So that's a very nice game for him. So I do think there is opportunity in the next coming weeks to maybe stream him.
Okay. He's kind of on my drop list at the moment, just because he's been a little disappointing.
I'd like to see him get more targets.
Wish he could play San Francisco's rookie cornerback every week.
Every week, right?
So did we want to go into players? We're 5 weeks in, and if you've been kind of holding on players to try to, that they're going to do something, maybe they've been injured, or did you guys have anybody? Did you set that up at all? I have about 3 or 4 players that.
I have. We did. I did. That was kind of like Gesicki, and for my quarterbacks, it was to shelf Matt Ryan for the time being until otherwise noticed.
Okay. So I did wide receivers. I'll go into about 3 or 4 wide receivers that I have that you could drop off your rosters if you are trying to pick up somebody else for the rest of the season. One of mine is, although he has a decent matchups coming up, but it's Marvin Jones. A lot of people picked him up, and then you had injuries there. But these are his numbers for the first 4 games. Of course, they're on bye this week. 4 for 55, 4 for 23, 3 for 51, and 1 for 9. That's not going to get it done.
Yeah, no.
You picked
him
up.
In the beginning, that was without Galladay, even. Yeah.
Right, and that exactly. So you thought he was going to have some bigger games. He's just kind of disappeared. Disappointing, which probably means next week he'll go 9 for 120 and 2 touchdowns. But that seems to be happening a lot this year with players, right? They kind of disappear, like Brandon Cooks, and then all of a sudden, they blow up. Zach Pascal in Indy, people thought he was going to be like the number 2 guy there. 2 catches, 3 catches, 2 catches, 3 catches, and 2 catches. 1 touchdown. Not getting it done. If you have him on your roster, look for somebody else. Look at one of those other guys we were talking about. AJ Green. We talked about him already. He's hurt. He doesn't have a connection with Burrow. T. Higgins has clearly taken his place. He's talking about wanting to be traded. I think we've seen the end of AJ Green. If you have him on your roster, like I do, it is time for him to go.
What about T.Y. Hilton? What do you guys think about what's going on with T.Y.? Because right now he's having a very difficult time. Last week, he had probably his best week. He was 6 for 69 on 10 targets. But before, and even that, when you target a receiver like T.Y. Hilton 10 times, I think you expect more than 6 for 69. The week before, 3 for 29, 3 for 52, 3 for 28, 4 for 53.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem there is Phillip Rivers. I think Rivers is just, we thought he was going to go there and do well. I think he's just kind of
out of his.
I think he's done. He's
Yep.
he's just kind of done.
He's actually another one that's on my to
Yeah.
drop for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those were some of my players. I have a few running backs, but I don't know if somebody else wanted to bring up some running backs.
Well, I've got quarterbacks up in front of me, and the first one
Okay.
is actually Phillip Rivers. And it's interesting. He's always been a rosterable fantasy quarterback. This guy's always gone for 4,000 plus yards and at least 25, 30 touchdowns. He is just not doing it at all this year. He doesn't have 1 week over 20 points, and his last week was a total dud against Cleveland with 5.5 points. And I agree that is one of the biggest problems with T.Y. Hilton.
Yep.
And then the other one is, and I'm on the fence with this because he's putting up some numbers, which is Carson Wentz. I mean, he's getting 20-point games, so he's keeping you there. The turnovers are just such a worry. You wonder how long they're going to let this go on. I mean, every week, what does he have? He's got interceptions. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 interceptions and 1 fumble so far this year. That's outpacing his 9 interceptions compared to 2, 3, 4, 6 touchdowns. That is not a good touchdown to interception ratio.
That's 2 turnovers a game.
It's incredible, and they're
Minus 4 points. That's too much.
What's amazing, and they're in the hunt. So
Right.
they're in the hunt in the East. So you wonder how long is Peterson going to keep him on that leash? And the last thing is, I can't believe I'm going to say this, is Matt Ryan, because he started off so unbelievably hot, and that defense is terrible. They're going to have to throw the ball like crazy to stay in games, but he's had 2 duds in a row. So right now, if you've got Matt Ryan, I would play Justin Herbert. I would play Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would play Ryan Tannehill over him any week until he proves himself. I wouldn't cut him, but you want to put him on the back burner on a very low heat.
Well, just remember that the new coach is now Raheem Morris.
That's true.
So things might change. Not that he's a guru. In fact, I believe he's defensive as a coach. He was the defensive coordinator for the Bucks, and then he moved into their top position, if I'm correct. And then he went to Washington as a defensive backs coach. So, I don't know who's going to run that offense, but I agree. I actually dropped Matt Ryan, but now I had Dak. I'm going to probably have to figure out a way to get him back.
And I'll tell you what was the most concerning to me, that this last game, which was pretty much a dud, 226 and only 1 touch, put up 7 fantasy points, depending upon if you're a 4 or 6 point touchdown passing league. That was against Carolina. I can throw for 300 yards.
They've been playing well. Carolina's on a 3-game
a little
streak.
better.
They're playing well.
Their defense is a little better. They're still one of the worst defenses in football. Matt Ryan should have no problem carving it up. And you can talk about the Julio Jones effect there as well. But there's too much talent there between Hurst and Ridley and Gage. I know Gage is a little bit hurt. And that other Odelius Zacharias. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So there's no reason that Ryan shouldn't be lighting it up against a team like Carolina. So don't cut him, but put him on the back burner for a bit.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has any more. I'm done. I don't know if you guys have some more you wanted to talk about.
I had 2 running backs.
Go ahead.
I have so he was a hot pickup, but I have Josh Kelly, and I know you're going to want to keep him on your roster from he's getting in his last 3 games, 8 for 43, 9 for 7, and 11 for 29. Jackson seems to have taken over there. You don't want to be starting a guy with those numbers. After the first week or so, it looked good and it looked like he was going to take over. And then he had that 1 fumble a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week. And it just, I don't know, it just seems like it's fallen apart for him and he's got nowhere to run.
So, it's funny, Commish, you were talking about Justin Jackson in the game. I'll tell you what I thought was interesting is how much he totally outtouched Josh Kelly.
Yep.
And just looked to me like the better back. I picked up Jackson in every league possible. I have Eckler in 1 league, and I went out and got Jackson for $20 because I remember even when Melvin Gordon held out and it was Eckler and Jackson until he got hurt was playing phenomenal. This guy is a great north-south one-cut runner, and he is excellent out of the backfield. So I absolutely believe you're spot on, Cyclop. He is going to replace Kelly as the 1A, out touch him. And when it comes down to come from behind, that kind of a game script, I think they trust Justin Jackson quite a bit more, and that was illustrated last night. So I love him.
Yep. And I have one more, which is Mark Ingram. Right? I mean, he's disappeared. I mean, he did have 11 for 57 the other day.
A lot of it was wasn't that on one run?
It was on one run, right? The yards came on one run. The other was not much. He had 8 for 34 and 7 for 30 his last few games. And this is a guy that was incredible last year. And he was only playing half games, it seemed.
Yeah.
And this year, they have the rookie in there and Lamar Jackson. And Jackson isn't putting up incredible numbers for where he was drafted, but he's still serviceable at the moment. But Mark Ingram just seems to be disappearing from that offense. And, if you drafted him, definitely look at replacing him on your roster.
And I'll tell you, two guys that are also surprisingly underperforming considering how they started and their talent levels are Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor. Now, Taylor did get the touchdown, and that saved his week, but you thought these guys were going to be tearing it up. If you look at what they're doing over the last few weeks, they are very much underperforming. I don't know how much it's them versus the games and the scripting, because I think these both are talented backs, and I'm thinking that narrative will change. But if you look over the last few weeks, they've not been performing. It's very underwhelming.
Mm-hmm. I've had Clyde Edwards, and I picked up Nyheim Hines last week because he was on the wires, and so I decided to pick him up. He did nothing for me.
Yeah,
I even benched him, and then I picked up. I've had him. I had J.K. Dobbins, the rookie, for the Baltimore. He's done nothing. So all these. I'm just getting so frustrated with all these young guys running, and they're just doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a tough thing to predict. Edwards-Helaire comes out, touches the ball 25 times in game one, and looks like he's going to be a beast all year, a la Kareem Hunt. And then he's kind of fallen off a little bit. I don't think it's his talent.
It'll change when the Dolphins draft Etienne from Clemson this coming year.
It seems to be happening week in and week out. Henderson has a good week, and then Brown has a good week, and then Akers all of a sudden is looking good. He's back
he's already
in the game.
Though I mean, I don't understand. People complain about running back by committee. You knew from the begining. We were saying from day one
100% that they were going to be
a running back game in LA.
No, it was just an example. It just seems to be except for maybe 5 to 8 running backs, maybe it's a few more than that. It just seems like this committee, and it's just you don't know what from one week to the next who's gonna do well. Drake, Edmonds, all these different committees.
Keith, who were your first in the South Florida draft? Who were your first 2 picks?
Alvin Kamara. Josh Jacobs.
All right. And what about you, Brad?
McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson.
Right, because you had the issue of at the end of the second round. Right. And I had Zeke and Carson. So
my third pick, or my second/third pick, was Miles Sanders.
Right.
So McCaffrey, let's say Sanders or McCaffrey and Jackson. Yeah.
Right. So it was really after the first 2 rounds, and even within the second round with the Drakes and the Johnsons, things weren't really working out. That's where the problem lied. There were only a handful of good running backs, but
right.
It looks like Adam's back right before we're about to sign off, but it can't hurt.
My computer died.
No problem. Any final words before we get going?
No, I appreciate you for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
Anytime.
Come back anytime.
Yep.
And we haven't really gotten into the idea of the playoff bubble for the NFL, but we'll talk about that on our next show.
Interesting.
All right. So send us your emails. If you have any questions, we'll address them on Sunday morning at 10:30 or 11. We'll send that out. And that's all I got watching this game.
Right.
And tomorrow's going to be a busy day of waivers on Wednesday going into Thursday, but there's no Thursday night football this week, right? So you don't have that you don't have that pressure to get anything done by then.
Right. So All right, so we're going to get going. We'll send out the notice to everybody for our show on Sunday. But in the meantime, go Titans, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next time.